The courtroom was quiet until the doors slammed open. Every head snapped around. Even the judge stopped playing mid-note, pen suspended in midair. The noise reverberated like a gunshot in the high-ceilinged room, echoing off the tall wooden walls and drifting away into the thick air of tension. Kody Brown walked in. Not the Kody on TV. Not the man in clean shirts and assured smiles, with cameras and wives. This was another Kody. His shoulders hunched over, his suit creased, as though he had just dragged it out of the back of a closet. His face was pale, his lips pursed together in a line that quivered with hardly suppressed irritation. And his eyes. His eyes moved feverishly around the room, like some caged animal seeking an outlet. He did not glance at the cameras. He did not smile for the reporters taking notes in the back. Instead, his eyes locked, for a split second sharply, onto the jury box, as if he was silently pleading, "Please, believe me." But in that room, belief was currency. And Kody was broke. 6 weeks prior, Robyn Brown, the one he had once referred to as his soulmate, was discovered lifeless in her bedroom. Death's reason was ambiguous, the specifics whispered, but rumors had run rampant like wildfire across the Sister Wives fan base and beyond. By the time Kody was taken into custody, the media circus had already penned its own conviction. Now, this trial was not only for Robyn's death, it was for power, control, and years of knotted, poisonous relationships coming to an end in the harsh light of courtroom spotlights. The prosecution argued Kody's greed and jealousy finally reached a boiling point, that once the other marriages failed and his public persona failed with them, he lost his cool. That Robyn had learned something deadly, and Kody killed her before she could tell anyone. But Kody's defense attorneys had a different plan. They weren't here to establish Kody's innocence. They were here to establish everyone else's guilt. The room divided. On the left side of the room sat Christine, Janelle, and Meri. The once smiling sister wives now appeared statuesque and carved of ice. Christine's jaw was firm. Her lips clamped so tight together they turned white. Janelle slumped with her arms folded, her gaze fixed on the vacant space in front of her, as though the entire trial had been something she'd already experienced in a nightmare. Meri sat rigidly straight, fingers folded neatly in her lap, her expression a mask of serenity. But there was something else in her eyes. They were cold, guarded. If there was one thing the public universally agreed on, it was this. None of them were innocent in the court of public opinion. They had all lived together, lovers of the same man, competitors for the same attention. And although they'd posed smiling for the cameras, their backstage wars were the stuff of myth among fans. Hurt, betrayal, and resentment over the years had accumulated, enough to write books about, enough to make any one of them capable of something. And now, all of that history was exposed to 12 strangers in a jury box to dissect like vultures over a corpse. The atmosphere. The air in the courtroom was filled with a sort of quiet that wasn't quiet at all. It was alive, vibrating with hushed whispers from the gallery, the soft scribbles of pens, the rustling of legal pads. Each sound seemed to feel more intense, more sharp. Even the barely audible creak of the judge's leather chair seemed to cut through the room. The aroma of aged wood and coffee filled the air. Fluorescent lights buzzed above, bathing everything in a harsh, two-dimensional light that accentuated aching faces even more. At the back of the room, a camera team murmured among themselves, their lenses fixed intently on Kody like vultures. Each blink, each shudder, each movement of his body would be dissected later in slow motion, argued over endlessly on the internet. And at its center, the vacant witness stand stood. The stakes. It was not a trial. It was a war zone wearing ties and forms. The prosecutor, a keen-eyed woman named Mason, sat with her files tidily stacked, pen balanced like a weapon. Occasionally, she would look in the direction of Kody, not with rage, but with the icy calm of one who knew they already had the advantage. Kody's defense attorney, Richards, was another matter. He leaned over Kody repeatedly, whispering urgently in low tones. His suit was impeccable, but the sharp crease between his brows spoke the truth. He was anxious, because here was the truth. If Kody lost this trial, he wasn't only losing his liberty, he was losing the last remnant of his public reputation. The man who had presented himself as a devoted father and husband would be forever branded with one defamatory word: murderer. The first look, Kody's gaze scanned the courtroom once more, but this time it paused on the wives. Christine met his eyes first. For an instant, something flickered between them. Not love, not even hate precisely, but so much history that it wouldn't quite fit into words. She didn't look away. She wanted him to know she wasn't afraid. Janelle did things every now and then. She stared straight ahead, her face a mask. It was as if she were somewhere else completely, possibly reliving that night, perhaps burying something deep within her that she didn't want discovered. Meri. Meri was the most difficult to read. Her face was soft, nearly sympathetic, yet in her eyes was a sharpness that would cut glass. The underlying question. And then there was the elephant in the room, unspoken but heavy with truth. This wasn't merely a matter of establishing Kody's guilt. This was survival. For the more the defense insinuated the other wives' involvement, the higher the tension built between them. Every witness stand testimony could save them or condemn them. In the minds of the public, though, it wasn't so much who had killed Robyn, but why. Jealousy, revenge, something she had been threatening to reveal. And if not Kody, that left one of these women a mere feet away from him, having committed the crime. The first whispers of suspense. As Kody finally sat down next to Richards, a whisper ran through the gallery. It was from the second row, a woman leaning over her neighbor, her voice low but full of urgency. I heard. They discovered something on Robyn's phone. Her friend's eyes were wide. What? But by the time she had responded, the bailiff shouted, "Order in the court," and the whispers ceased. But still, the words hung in the air like smoke, curling into the minds of all who had heard them. Something in her phone. Something they hadn't shared with the public. The clock begins. The judge cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you are now going to hear a case that will demand your undivided attention. It will push your patience, your judgment, and maybe your very concept of truth. Kody shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his fists clenched. Christine, Janelle, and Meri didn't flinch. The gallery leaned forward ravenous. And in that instant, the trial of Kody Brown, the trial that would bring long-hidden secrets to light, finally began. Everybody in the room was aware of one thing. At the end of this, someone's life would be ruined, and no one could even hazard a guess as to whose. The courtroom clock marked time like a sluggish heartbeat as the bailiff summoned the first witness. Christine Brown, please take the stand. Each camera in the room panned. The gentle groan of the witness stand reverberated abnormally loud as Christine approached, heels tapping against the highly polished wood floor. She was different from the Christine viewers had remembered, not the smiling, free-spirited woman who had left Kody years before, but a woman tempered by loss, rage, and something else. Something the jury couldn't quite define yet. She donned a navy blazer, her blonde hair tied back in a no-nonsense bun. But even as she tried to look calm, her hands gave away the charade, shaking as she patted down her skirt and fiddled with the microphone in front of her. The opening questions. The prosecutor, Mason, stood up straight, her eyes pinned on Christine. "Mrs. Brown," Mason started, her tone even but with an edge. "You had a 25-year history with the defendant, Kody Brown. You were married for more than 25 years, right?" Christine nodded. "Yes. And in that time, you had disagreements?" Christine gave a short, dry laugh. That's one way to say it. Some of the people in the gallery giggled softly, but Mason did not smile. "Mrs. Brown, did you have a relationship with Robyn Brown?" Christine's eyes flashed to Kody. "We were civil, but we were never friends." "Why not?" Mason's tone edged just a bit sharper. Christine paused. The silence hung there long enough to have the jury leaning forward. "Because I warned her," Christine said at last. Mason stepped in closer. "Warned her about what?" "The first crack in the wall. Not the money, Christine repeated firmly. The manner in which Kody was handling it. The manner in which he kept things from us. And the way he was, different with her. Angrier upon the rest of us departed. Kody's attorney jumped out of his seat. Objection. Speculation and character assassination. The judge pondered for an instant, then said, Sustained. Mrs. Brown, stick to facts you personally observed. Christine nodded, but her eyes never left Kody. Okay, the truth is, I saw Robyn upset more than once. She told me things that made me worry about her. The air in the courtroom seemed to grow taut. Mason took a slow step toward Christine. Mrs. Brown, were you at Robyn's house the night before she died? Christine stiffened. Her hands clutched the edge of the witness stand. Yes, but it wasn't. Just yes or no, please, Mason cut in suavely. Yes, Christine replied, her voice hardly above a whisper. The timeline problem. The defense attorney, Richards, stood up for cross-examination. His tone was cool, near friendly. Christine, you stated you were at Robyn's residence that evening. What time was that? Christine shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Around 8 o'clock. Richards nodded. And how long did you stay? 10 minutes, maybe. And you departed? A little after 8. Richards strolled slowly, hands clasped behind his back. You're certain of that? Yes. He looked toward the jury, then at Christine. Fascinating. For security cameras on the street, record your vehicle parked in front of Robyn's house at 10:15 p.m. A murmur flowed through the gallery. Christine's face turned white. That's impossible. You weren't there. Richards interrupted. I left. I don't know. Perhaps I parked nearby afterwards? Why? Christine's lips opened, then shut again. The jury saw her fight. I don't remember, she said at last. Richards leaned forward in the stand. You don't remember, or you don't want to tell? Objection, Mason shouted. But the harm was done. The seed of doubt had been planted. The look between them. Kody had not spoken during most of Christine's testimony, but now his eyes fixed on hers like steel. There was no pleading in them this time. No fear, only something dark and knowing. Christine would not even glance at him initially, but when she did, it was as if two rivers met. Years of love, betrayal, and hidden charges sizzling in the air between them. Gallery viewers later swore they saw Christine's hand jerk, as if she longed to point at him on the spot. Mason's redirect Mason had more to say. She got up again, her heels clicking loudly against the floor. Christine, did you threaten Robyn at all? No, Christine replied, her voice firm now. I was there to leave some of the old stuff of her children. I warned her she had to watch out. That's all. And when you left, Mason continued, his voice firm. Was Robyn alive? Yes. Christine's eyes welled up, but she refused to glance away from the jury. She was alive, and she was frightened. Mason breathed deeply. Scared of what? Christine paused. Of Kody. She said to me, she'd discovered something that could ruin him forever. The courtroom erupted into whispers. The judge rapped his gavel for order, but it was too late. The words were already burned into the brains of the jury. The jury's reaction. In the corner of the room, one of the jurors, a woman in her early 20s, frantically scribbled something in her notebook. Another, an older man, sat back in his chair, his forehead furrowed in concentration as if putting together pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. Christine's testimony had changed the mood. Until now, Kody was just the accused. But this suggested something more. A motive. And if Robyn really had discovered something powerful enough to ruin Kody, then anyone close to him might have wanted her gone. The defense's counterplay Richards knew he couldn't let Christine's last statement linger in the air. Christine, he said smoothly, isn't it true you've had public disagreements with Kody since leaving him? That you've spoken out against him on multiple occasions? Yes, but... And that you've criticized Robyn as well? Yes. But that doesn't... And isn't it conceivable, Richards demanded, his voice rising, that your distaste for Robyn influenced your view of her relationship with Kody? That you wished to see peril where there wasn't? No, Christine retorted. You're misrepresenting my words. Richards smiled faintly, facing the jury. Or perhaps, you're misrepresenting the truth. The session ends. The judge adjourned for a brief recess, and Christine descended from the witness stand. As she walked by Kody's table, the two did not talk, but there was something that passed between them, a glance that caused even the bailiff to double-take. Christine went back to her seat next to Janelle and Meri. Janelle leaned forward, whispering something that hardened Christine's jaw. Meri said nothing. She simply kept her eyes on Kody, and for an instant, a fleeting smile played on her lips. The crowd wasn't aware, but Christine's statement had just opened the door a crack to the most explosive revelations of the trial. And in the next hearing, those cracks were going to split wide apart. The recess closed out with the resounding slam of the judge's gavel. Court is back in session. Prosecution, call your next witness. Mason stood, her dark suit in contrast to the pale wood of the courtroom. The state calls Janelle Brown to testify. There was a ripple of anticipation through the gallery. Janelle wasn't a woman who did drama, although she was also frequently referred to as the calm wife, the one who kept her head while chaos erupted around the Brown family. But that calmness could make her deadly. The walk to the stand, Janelle moved with silent intent, her face inscrutable. Her green eyes flashed quickly toward Kody, not long enough to qualify as a glance, but long enough for him to see. In contrast to Christine's tight, combative body posture, Janelle stood like a woman who had already practiced each of the words she was going to speak. She put her right hand on the Bible, swore on it, and sat down without any fidgeting. The courtroom breathed in unison. The gentle start. Mason's voice was gentler with Janelle. Mrs. Brown, you were married to Kody for almost 3 decades, right? Yes. And you were close to Robyn Brown? Janelle nodded. We had a complicated relationship. But yes, I knew her. What are you calling complicated? Janelle paused, then answered levelly. Robyn and I didn't quarrel, not yelling quarrels, but we both knew she was Kody's pet. And when you reside in a plural marriage, favoritism is a poison that seeps into all things. A couple of jurors took notes. Kody squirmed in his seat. The call Mason moved closer to the microphone. Mrs. Brown, did you have any contact with Robyn on the night she died? Yes, Janelle replied softly. She called me. The room shifted. Even Christine sat up straighter. What did she say? Mason asked. Janelle's tone fell lower, making the jury crouch forward to catch. She sounded afraid. She said she discovered something about Kody, and she didn't know what to do about it. Mason's voice grew sharper. Did she tell you what that something was? Number. She said it was too risky to tell over the phone, but she asked if I could meet her the next morning. And did you? Janelle's jaw clenched. Number, because the next day, she was already gone. The defense pushes back. Richard stood before Mason could get another word out. Mrs. Brown, isn't it true you and Kody had a disagreement about money? Yes. And isn't it also true, Richards continued, that you at one time told friends you hoped Robyn would just disappear so Kody would be able to concentrate on the other wives? Janelle's eyes grew narrow. I never meant that literally. But you said it? Yes, she acknowledged, in frustration. But words are not action. Richards moved closer. Frustration can lead to motive, can't it? If you felt Robyn was ruining what remained of your marriage, you might have made the decision to end that issue. Permanently. No, Janelle said strongly. I did not kill her. The twist in the timeline Richards did not sit. Mrs. Brown, where were you between the hours of 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. on the night that Robyn died? At home. Is anyone able to verify that? My son. Richards turned over a page of his notes. Your son. Who informed police that he went to bed at 8:30? There was a silence in the room. So, Richards went on. You were by yourself during the exact hours Robyn was murdered. Nobody saw you. Nobody heard from you. And yet, you expect this jury to believe you're not involved? Janelle didn't flinch. Yes, because I wasn't. Mason strikes back. Mason rose to redirect, her voice sharp. Mrs. Brown, why didn't you report to police what Robyn had confided in you that night? Janelle's gaze went soft at last. Because I thought she was lying. I thought it was just another argument between her and Kody. We'd all had them. I didn't know how serious it was until too late. Do you regret it? A flash of feeling passed over Janelle's face. Every day. The glance that said, too much. As Janelle exited the stand, she did something quiet, almost too fast to notice. She slipped behind Christine and grazed her shoulder for a moment. Christine never even looked up, but her hand clenched into a fist on her lap. It was the sort of thing you'd miss if you weren't paying attention. But the jury was paying attention, and so were the cameras. The jury's doubts grow. By this point, the jurors weren't just focusing on Kody anymore. They were focusing on Christine, on Janelle, on Meri, who had yet to testify. The prosecution's theory was obvious, that Kody was the one with the most motive. But the defense was building a slow-burning web of another sort, that each of these women had motives, means, and hidden grudges that might have killed Robyn. And that web was beginning to hold. The private moment. As the court broke for lunch, Kody turned to Richards, his words low, but caught by a microphone nearby. She's lying, he grumbled. They're all lying. Richards didn't answer, merely shuffled papers on his desk. But in the row behind them, Meri remained very still and smiled. The atmosphere in the courtroom had changed. It was thick now, as though the truth itself was struggling to surface. Judge Peterson cleared his throat. The court will now receive testimony from Kody Brown. Christine stood up from her chair slowly. She did not glance at Kody. She did not glance at the jury. Her gaze remained stuck on the shiny wood floor as she made her way to the witness stand. Whispers traveled through the room. Christine, the one who always smiled so sweetly on film. Christine, who the world believed had finally broken free of Kody's domination. But here, under oath, she was trembling. And that unsettled everyone else. Having sworn her in, the prosecutor approached. Mrs. Brown, he started softly, can you explain to the court what transpired on the evening of March 14th? Her lips parted, but nothing issued forth for a second. Then, in a quivering voice, I went to Robyn's house that night. The jury stiffened. Kody's face contorted, his eyes narrowing as if he'd never heard before. Why? Asked the prosecutor. Christine swallowed hard. Because I was tired. Tired of the lies. Tired of Kody treating her like everyone else didn't matter. I just needed to talk to her. The prosecutor's tone remained steady, but his words had power. Did you two quarrel? Christine shut her eyes. Yes. She said I destroyed the family. I told her she stole my life. And then, what occurred? Her breathing became unbalanced. I lost control. I seized her arm. She pushed me, and she fell. The room erupted in gasps. Kody jumped up, his chair crashing to the floor. She's lying. She's only trying to save herself. She didn't like Robyn, I admit it. But she didn't murder her. I saw what went on. The judge rapped his gavel. Order. Mr. Brown, sit down or be taken away from the courtroom. But Kody did not sit down. He directly pointed at Christine. She's giving the impression like it was an accident, but I was there. I saw her. A shockwave swept through the jury box. 2 confessions in one instant. The prosecutor stared at them back and forth. Mr. Brown, are you confessing that you were at Robyn's residence that night? Kody's chest inflated and deflated quickly. Yes, but not as if they're portraying it. She was not meant to die. The next moment of silence was oppressive. The jury came back in, every step ringing out like a beat of destiny. The judge's eyes narrowed, the crowd holding its breath in unison. Kody was seated rigidly, hands grasping the side of the defense table, knuckles pale. He didn't have the courage to glance over at Christine, Janelle, or Meri, but he could sense their gaze on him. The foreman stood. "We, the jury, find the defendant." A pause so long it could have swallowed the room whole. Not guilty." Gasps exploded through the courtroom. Christine's lips parted in disbelief, Meri's eyes widened, and Janelle gripped the bench in front of her. The judge slammed the gavel for order. Kody shut his eyes, relief pouring over him. But it was the relief of a man who had just narrowly escaped the hangman's rope for the moment. But as the commotion erupted, a shrill voice boomed over the whispers. It was Christine, standing up, sobs pouring down her face. "He might not be guilty in your court," she stated, her voice trembling but firm. "But in the court of truth, he is..." The courtroom broke out once more, reporters rushing, cameras flashing. The judge called for quiet, but it was too late. The damage was done. Kody stood, trying to grin for the cameras. But when he started walking away, his gaze met Janelle. She was smiling. Not warmly, but knowingly. Like she had a card he didn't even realize she had. Outside, reporters jammed the sidewalk. Microphones in his face, voices blurring questions. "Did you murder Robyn? Were you in on the cover-up? Do you fear the other wives will come forward?" Kody didn't respond. He continued walking, the flash of cameras echoing behind him like phantoms. In the darkness of the courthouse steps, a woman stood silently observing. A manila envelope clutched under her arm, loaded with photographs, bank records, and a secret will Robyn signed before she died. Christine's words carried on the wind, a warning almost. "This isn't over, Kody. Not by a long shot." And on the screen goes black, one last line on him, "To be continued." He